Hello, Paul Fagan at bitsixteen here in Dublin. Recently, I put out a video listing what I feel are the 5 qualities you need to be a good VO. So this is kind of a follow-on from that part two. Um, so just to suggest what you might do after that. The first thing I recommend you do is go to some voice coaching. Now, if you have the 5 qualities I mentioned and you're experienced in some way, well then that's fine. But this video is more for people who are just getting into it. So I think voice coaching will kind of put you through boot camp and push you to do different reads on different things like adverts or different types of adverts or documentary reads, whatever it is, and get you to really push your voice and have some immediate and qualified feedback. So I think that's really useful. You might find out if some of the services that are out there provide coaching as well as a demo recording. That might be something they do, or they might provide demo recording as a separate service. Now, my understanding is there are this Tommy Ellis Jr. Owns Velvet Voice, and he does voice coaching. I think he also does demo recording. An old story at the Beacon Studios, I know they run Voice Talent Ireland. So you can inquire about that. I know they do demo recording and hosting. Not 100% sure about voice coaching, but I'm sure that's probably part of it. There's also Roger Gregg, Cathal Quinn. These are all people who can train you in the field of voiceover. But there may be lots and lots of others out there who are absolutely brilliant and I don't know of. So a quick search on the internet there should help you out. But I do recommend you go and get voice coaching because it'll really push you through that voice gym, and hopefully at the end of it you'll feel much more confident and much more able to take on some of the VO tasks, jobs that are out there. So that's number one. Number two would be to record a demo. You really have to decide what sort of demo you want to record. You need to decide what field of VO that you want to go into. For instance, you might feel that corporate stuff is where you're at. You like doing narration and presenting, and that's fine. So you need to do a demo for that so that you can go for those jobs. You might want to do adverts. You might want to demonstrate a range of acting abilities or voices that you can do, character voices. So you might want to go about doing an adverts demo. Or you might want to go about doing something that's more along the lines of audiobooks or documentaries. So you might go about doing that. Animation is another one people would do. So animation, obviously, most of it's going to be geared towards kids. You might feel that you want to demonstrate that you can do the voices of wizards or witches or monsters or sergeant majors in the army or kids or animals. Whatever it is, you want to pack it on there. So you want to have a little bit of script for each voice that you're going to do. Not too long, because you don't want to labor on one particular one when maybe you're doing 20 characters. So the idea would be to keep it going, and so that the casting director or whoever's listening to your demo doesn't have too long to wait between the different voices that you're going to do. But it's important that you decide which one you want to go for, and indeed, if that's all of them, that's absolutely fine. But you need to decide that, because the thing about it is, and most of my background originates in recording voiceover for e-learning, and sometimes when an end client, so my clients will be e-learning companies, and then their clients will be what I'd call the end client. So that could be any sort of corporation you can think of. And they might be looking for, let's say they're looking for a female US voice. And all you have is an adverts demo to send them. So, I might have a pool of VOs and I'd have their demos and I send them all off to the e-learning company and they send them off to the end client. And the end client listens to it and as I say, let's say it's an adverts demo. So now you have somebody demonstrating that they can do a chocolate advert or a beer advert or an insurance advert, but the reads aren't quite suited to maybe a training course. So it's very difficult for the end client, who mightn't be in media production and mightn't be involved at all in the voiceover industry or the recording industry. It's very hard for them to envisage how somebody might be doing the voice they need. So really, that's why you need a corporate demo. And obviously it's the same, if you just do a corporate demo then and somebody wants you for an ad, they want to hear a demonstration of your abilities to do different voices. And, maybe a corporate demo isn't going to do that in itself. I would suggest though that if you're doing adverts, you maybe listen to adverts and write down some copy, or even just make up your own adverts. It doesn't really matter. And do the range of adverts that you want to do. I don't know, you could do 6 ads, 8 ads, whatever you want. And keep them short enough. For adverts, I think these aren't actual adverts. So if you can keep them short, 10 seconds each, that's ideal. If they've got to be a little bit longer, so be it. But again, always keep in mind that it's somebody at the other end is going to be listening to this. So for instance, if you have a 1-minute advert at the beginning of your demo and there's 5 others backed up behind that you want the casting director to hear, they mightn't listen that long. They'll be stepping through it, trying to hear, okay, I've heard 5 seconds of the first ad, I get the voice, sounds good, let's hear something else, and they'll be skipping through it. So it's kind of more ideal if you just keep them short yourself. And also it'll keep your demos shorter and your file sizes shorter for uploading or emailing or whatever it is, but that's just a practical bonus really. If you're doing a corporate kind of e-learning style demo, I suggest you do at least 2 different types of read. So one is kind of just neutral and informative, and the second one might be more upbeat and warm and friendly. And again, it's just to demonstrate to the client that you can do the 2 reads, because, and I've had this situation happen, the end client, if they hear a straight neutral read but they want an upbeat read, they'll probably just think, oh, well, that person can only do that neutral straight read. That's not what we're looking for. And it might seem obvious to you that as a VO or an actor, you might have some range, but it isn't obvious to them, and they're just listening to sound clips and trying to find something that piques their interest. So I think it's ideal there if you can just do at least 2. A third one might be more of a solemn read or a grave read. For instance, in e-learning, you might get that when they're talking about the consequences of breaking compliance law. Compliance is a big thing in e-learning, and the possibility of going to prison for breaching law or fines or whatever. So, but it probably makes up 5% or less of e-learning in my experience. So, it's a nice to have. You could have it at the end of your demo if you want. And just find suitable pieces of text so that you can do those reads. So Wikipedia is your friend there. You can just go onto Wikipedia and find suitable pieces of text and then read them in the style that you want to read them. Obviously for audiobook reads, if you're doing something like that, you should probably go for something that's fiction, unless you don't feel comfortable doing different voices. Maybe if more straight reads are your thing, maybe just do non-fiction. But I think if you're getting into this field and you're getting into audiobooks, it might be difficult to just narrow your area to non-fiction. So I think most clients would probably expect you to be able to do both. But certainly I feel that you should probably take a snippet from a fictional piece, and it can be something that's out of copyright if you want. It could be Charles Dickens or whatever, and take a piece that has a few characters in it, even if it's 2 or 3, just that you have the narrator, you might have a main character and at least somebody else, just so you can demonstrate that you can flick between narration and character voices, and that you can actually do the character voices. I could do a whole video on accents because it's a bit of a minefield. We've all seen films where some of the characters have terrible accents. Far and Away might be an example of where Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman do, Irish accents, and it's pretty terrible. Now, Hollywood isn't too fussed, it seems, about accents. There's British and Irish actors affecting American accents, and there's American accents doing Irish or Scottish or English accents or whatever. And that's just the way it is. They're not really too bothered, even though the people from the areas those accents represent might be cringing while they're watching it. That's just the way it is. So if you're doing an acting kind of demo audiobook, they might be a little bit more forgiving. Although I feel the better you can nail an accent, the better overall. If you're doing e-learning, however, it's a totally different ballgame, because e-learning clients are corporations who are training their staff, and they'd be a bit more sensitive to bad accents. Many of their staff might be from those regions, and they might be distracted. So if you can imagine you start in a new company and they sit you down to do an induction training course, and let's say you're from Manchester, and let's say there are scenarios in the e-learning course and there's a character from Manchester, but it's clearly voiced by somebody who isn't from Manchester. Let's say for the sake of argument, they are Dutch. That's going to be pretty distracting. So you're sitting there thinking, what the hell is this accent? I can't even make it out. And all the while the training is going on and you're missing it. And as well, I suppose people can be pretty sensitive to that as well. Maybe they can feel kind of just, I don't know, put off by it or a bit patronized by it. But all I can say is that e-learning companies are very sensitive to accents. So if you're doing e-learning stuff, I suggest that you only do accents that you can nail. So for instance, if you are from Manchester, but you can nail an RP, that's great. But it also means you can probably do various Manchester or Mancunian accents. So that's fine. You should be fairly confident to doing those. But maybe less so a Glasgow accent. That's not to say you can't do it. Maybe you can do a Glasgow accent that Glaswegians would listen to and go, actually, that's spot on. But you'd want to be very confident that you can do that. Otherwise, they'd avoid it. I think for adverts and audiobooks, the industry is more forgiving because we've all heard adverts and perhaps audiobooks where the accents weren't spot on, to say the least. But anyway, just to recap, I think that's what you should do. Record a demo, decide which area of the industry you're targeting, if not them all, and then go about writing scripts for those various sectors or those sections of the industry and record demos for them so that you have the perfect demo to send out for the perfect job. So that's number 2. Now, number 3, there's a bit of a fork in the road here. What you need to do is decide, do you want to represent yourself as a VO, or if you would you prefer to go with an agent? Now, there's probably pros and cons to both. If you represent yourself, all your income is yours, bar tax, obviously, but you don't have to pay anyone else, for representing you. So all the income is yours. However, you'll have to do all your own negotiating if it comes to negotiating fees, etc. And you'll have to do all the admin stuff yourself, whatever that entails for each individual job. And And the other thing is you might miss out on certain gigs because while social media allows, potential clients to put out the call for VOs, etc., and there can be great success for them in finding the right talent that they want. Big clients still go to agents, like publishers, for instance, for audiobooks, or advertising agencies will still typically go to VO agents to find talent, to find good talent. And so you might miss out on those jobs if you don't go with an agent. It's entirely up to yourself. And there again, even if you do choose to go with an agent, you still have to apply to agencies to try and get them to take you on their books, and that can be really difficult. You'd have to talk to an agent about what they're looking for at any given time. They might have a lot of a particular voice on their books, and they don't really want more of that. If you sound like those people, or they might just not be taking on any more new talent at the time you apply. But you could certainly talk to the agents or apply to them, or even talk to other experienced VOs and ask for their take on it. If you go it alone, it's going to be difficult as well because you have to do the graft to get your name out there. So you might have to look through all the studios that are in Dublin and try to send them your demos, or look up the animation studios if that's the field you're going into, and try to send your demos in, or even publishers, and that can be really difficult. I've seen people get success and make a living out of this by themselves, but they're people who typically started early on. They got a good jump start in their career by being, continuity announcers or whatever it is, and then got known that way. And that means that studios in which they've worked, recording studios in which they've worked, would be aware of them. And if suitable jobs came up, or if somebody in the studio was ever asked, do you know somebody who could do this? They'd say, I know a guy, or I know a girl, or whatever, who could do that. But anyway, that's what you'll have to do. It's just going to be a lot of graft to get your demo out there. If you have an agent, well, then their site is obviously going to do it, and and that's fine. But if you don't, you're going to have to try and get your demo out there and sit down and try to think of all the different people or entities that would record voiceover, and who of those you could send your demo to. So that's number 3. Now, number 4 is register with VO sites. Now, I've no experience of this, but I'm just mentioning it so that you know about it if you didn't already, and you can look into it. But there are sites like, voices.com or whatever, and even Audible, the Amazon company that markets and sells audiobooks. They would have you can register there as a VO and hope to get work out of it. I don't know. I've heard good and bad stories from people about being on talent sites, in that they might have to pay a fee and they might not get any work. But I think it's like anything, you have to decide for yourself whether the investment is worth it. I do know other people who've had enough success to make it worth it. So it's really up to you. You again have to do your research on which of those VO hosting sites are good, what the feedback is like, and which ones are not so good, and just decide on what you want to take a punt on. So that's number 4. So those are the 4 things I think you could do, or at least think about, so long as you feel you have the aptitude for VO. I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions or anything, please let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.